To prepare for civil war or any other major crisis is the fundamental strategy is to become entirely self-reliant while ensuring that there is a robust way to defend your home. And obviously, such a conflict is an absolute tragedy, and anyone who thinks it's exciting or cool is an idiot. But you always have to plan for the worst because the country is more divided than ever. The world is really. And history repeats itself. And with the way that the politics have been unfolding over the past decade and years, and the elections that roll by every year, there's always that potential for protests and rioting and looting on the street. And so the overarching secret is staying safe. So you have to have a way to defend yourself and make friends with like-minded people. And another key is to get out of big cities. So self-reliance starts with a massive water storage. You need to keep hundreds of gallons on hand using a variety of containers like 55-gallon drums, 7-gallon containers, 5-gallon containers, bottled water in those packs. And beyond just storage, you need a backup plan like a water well or other natural resources of water, some secondary location. And on top of this, you need filtration equipment to process all this water. You need to be able to process something like 30,000 gallons of water before you need to change the system so that when your supply runs out, you can safely use water from local creeks or lakes for a very long time. You also need bug out bags for every single member of your family or the housing you're in for your roommates, if you will. Unless you need a bug out bag for yourself too if you're single. These should be ready to grab and go in an instant if you're forced to leave your home. But it's always best to shelter in place if possible. Now, these bags need to be packed with dozens of things, useful utilities, including knives, utility knives, survival food, fire starters, and tube tents. For example, you should have large tools like a kukri or a machete for cutting through brush. You need smaller utility knives for things like gutting fish and all the other equipment you're using, like ropes and stuff and ties. Knives are just so useful, right? You need things that start fire easily. Bic lighters, maybe a few of those long stick lighters where they are torch lighters, Swedish fire steel, dryer lint, fire rope. And you also need to include communication tools like hand crank radios to stay informed and being able to talk, because cell phones aren't necessarily that reliable. Now, your survival food supply needs to be very extensive, enough to last an entire year for every person, or at least for yourself. And so this is a massive amount of food. So you won't be able to build it overnight. You don't have to. You can accumulate it over many years by living. You do this by living below the typical means. This is really important. You need a lot of prudence for this. It's like becoming a millionaire. One of the secrets to becoming a millionaire is living like a poor person, driving used cars, wearing like thrift store clothes. So avoid buying new cars and new things. Always buy secondhand, used. Avoid expensive vacations. And just live modestly in a modest home or a reasonably affordable place to rent to free up funds for your supplies. You need to stock up on survival food pouches and lots of stuff. And so when you're doing this, you can store them in durable totes, like those large ones that you find at those hardware stores, Home Depot, Canadian Tire, and all that, Rona and Lowe's. You can even, some of them come with these, you can buy these racks, so you can actually stack the totes on top of each other like a shelf system, or like a pull-out shelf system, more like a drawer system. Actually, they slide on these racks, and then you take the tote halfway out, pull the lid off, take your stuff, and then put the lid back on, slide it in, and you can stack them, 8 to 10 high to maximize your space this way, and ensure that your security is never compromised by a lack of resources. So you need to realize that building a comprehensive food supply really doesn't happen overnight. It's a long process, and it's a consistent effort and discipline. Now, as a recommendation, some really high quality foods can be found at spyfoodstorage.com. So you have to start acquiring as much of this survival food as you can right now, because having all the water in the world won't do you any good if you don't have the food to keep your energy up during a crisis. Now, alongside your food, you need to have a plan for ways of defending yourself and your property. And because this is a Gnostic Buddhist channel, I highly discourage, I don't recommend lethal weapons because of karmic consequences. Very detrimental karmic consequences of using lethal weapons effectively. So you should have a collection of non-lethal weapons, however, for self-defense. There are various non-lethal guns available that come in different forms. You can get non-lethal pistols, perhaps like submachine guns, like close quarters combat, small-sized non-lethal rifles. You might even be able to get long-range rifles too. But it's just good to have a variety of these things. Of course, the pistols are the most convenient and easy to carry around with you, but they don't have as much range. So you need to stock a pretty good amount of these, deterrents. There are also many other things like high velocity pepper ball launchers. Bear spray is great to have. It's super powerful. And then the lower grade from that is what people tend to call pepper spray, which is usually the form of dog spray. And these are more convenient. You can just carry it in your pocket. And beyond your personal gear, you need to secure your entire property by installing perimeter alarms and driveway sensors so that you have that critical early warning of anyone approaching. Just get whatever you can, right? Alarm systems and cameras, infrared cameras. Obviously, it's not really something as needed if you live in a condo or apartment. But the thing is, I'm suggesting that you live out of the city. So at that point, there are less condos and more typical housing where you'll need this. You also need to ensure your power independence by having a variety of generators on hand. You need a solar generator, and then you need fuel, propane for certain things like propane fires and other appliances. You need gas for your cars and your other motors that you might be using. If you're going to buy gas, Honda is one of the best brands for this. They have very good, reliable gas. And because you can't afford a mechanical failure when the grid is down. Now, even if you appeal to being a lone wolf, or you're used to being alone all the time, the fact of the matter is it's not a good idea. So you should make friends with like-minded people in your area. You simply can't patrol the perimeter of your area 24 hours a day and all day, all night, right? So you may need to consider having neighbors doing this for you in some cases if you want that kind of security. Someone you can trust with your life who is also prepared in a similar way with their own food and resources and defense supplies. And you need to establish a simple but solid agreement to work together so nobody becomes a burden on the other person, on the other person's resources. And it's also vital to get out of, as I said, get out of these big cities. Practice living in smaller towns, because cities can become very dangerous. They are pretty unstable, dirty places. They're always overcrowded, and they're the first to, have a major conflict. The protests happen in the cities. The riots happen in the cities. There are too many people. It gets too dangerous too quickly. And even if a full-scale civil war never happens, you just have to realize that this is a crazy time that we live in. And it's not going to get any better. It's going to be crazier and crazier as the years go by. So, and rainy days, like job losses, can always happen. Medical emergencies can happen. Divorces happen. So when a crisis hits and everyone else is desperately rushing to the grocery store, you can stay just where you are because you've already prepared yourself for this. You have everything you need. And you need to start preparing today with your supplies and your bartering goods too, your gold and silver investments. Because once this crisis starts, it's already too late to go out and get what you need. The gold and silver will be too expensive. Everything will be out of stock.